My time is now. I reclaim it. Joe arrives at the border of Gorland Forest, where the gnarled trees cast shadows. The trees twist skyward, their branches like skeletal arms against the sky. The wind whispers through the trees, carrying a sense of foreboding. Joe ventures deeper into the silent, looming embrace of Gorland Forest. The forest's tranquility shatters as a tripwire springs to life, ensnaring Joe's ankle with cruel precision. He is suspended upside down as goblins descend from the trees, their laughter echoing with sinister glee. Joe wakes up, the cold, damp stone of the dungeon seeping into his bones. The air hangs heavy, thick with the stench of rot and mold, filling his lungs with each breath. He grips the cold, unyielding iron bars, desperation rising within him. Goblins return to the dungeon, their laughter echoing through the stone halls. A heavy sack lands in Joe's cell, its contents unknown. The sack thuds heavily on the floor, dust rising around Joe. A burlap sack writhes on the damp dungeon floor, its muffled sounds heightening the tension. Joe approaches cautiously, his hand trembling slightly as he reaches for the knot. With a final tug, the sack falls open, revealing Ella, her face a mask of annoyance and discomfort. Ella and Joe stand in the heart of the goblin dungeon, where shadows play a sinister dance on the rough stone. Ella questions Joe's outlandish claim with biting sarcasm. A prince? Seriously, Joe? Joe responds with unwavering confidence. I assure you, it's true. Ella retorts with a dismissive scoff. Right, and I'm the Goblin Queen. You expect me to believe that? Joe smugly challenges her skepticism. Just wait and see. You're probably just the type to panic and need rescuing anyway. Ella's defiance ignites, as she accuses all boys of arrogance, claiming their inflated egos blind them to the dangers around them. The air crackles with animosity as their glares lock, each refusing to back down. Joe sits against the cold dungeon wall, lost in memories of Eldoria. He recalls the hidden dagger, a glimmer of resolve in his eyes. He pulls out the dagger. In the depths of the goblin dungeon, Ella's face shows curiosity and relief. Ella asks, "Why didn't you use the dagger earlier?" Joe replies, "I was saving it." Torches flicker, painting the damp stone walls with eerie shadows. Small, grotesque goblins beat crude drums, their chanting echoing through the cavernous space. Joe and Ella exchange a terrified glance, the horrifying truth sinking in. In the dimly lit goblin dungeon, Joe skillfully manipulates the cell lock with a dagger. A soft click signals success as the lock disengages. Ella watches Joe, her eyes wide with impressed admiration. "I'm impressed by your skill." Under the cloak of shadows, they emerge from their prison, their escape silent and swift. The darkness embraces them as they vanish into the mouth of the tunnel, each step measured and stealthy. Deep within the goblin tunnels, Joe and Ella move stealthily through the shadows, the air thick with the odors of mildew and metal. They press against the cold stone as the guttural sounds of approaching goblin patrols reverberate through the tunnels. Joe and Ella halt at a fork in the damp, glistening goblin tunnels. Joe gestures firmly to the left, declaring, "Left. I think it's shorter." Ella resolutely turns right, countering, "No, right. I heard something. This way." A heated debate flares, cutting through the oppressive silence of the goblin tunnels. A decision is made. The tunnel opens into a storage room filled with weapons and supplies. In the heart of the goblin tunnels, Joe and Ella prepare for battle. Joe tests the weight of his sword, ready to strike. Ella chooses her bow, her movements precise. With practiced ease, Ella readies her arrows, preparing to fire. Deeper into the goblin tunnels they venture, now armed and ready. In the depths of the goblin tunnels, Joe and Ella are confronted by a cluster of goblins, their eyes gleaming with malice in the dim light. Joe launches a swift kick, sending one goblin sprawling. Ella follows with a precise strike, disarming another goblin. They move as one, easily dispatching the remaining goblins. Deep within the goblin tunnels, a cavern echoes with ominous chants. Joe and Ella disrupt the goblins' ritual, bursting into the cavern. Goblins scatter in panic, their chanting silenced by the sudden intrusion. Cauldrons bubble unattended, casting shadows across the cavern walls. Chaos erupts as Joe clashes with unseen foes, his sword a whirlwind of motion. Ella, a shadow in the tumult, sends arrows streaking toward the enemy. Amidst the echoing chambers of the goblin cavern, the air hangs heavy with the aftermath of battle. Victorious, I turn to flee the grim scene. We emerge from the cavern, leaving the shadows behind. Emerging from the dense Gorland forest, Joe and Ella pause, their ragged appearance telling tales of a harrowing journey. They turn, their gazes fixed on the imposing wall of trees, the forest now a silent sentinel behind them. As dawn breaks, a faint orange glow kisses the horizon, promising a new day.
The Moonlight Marsh and the Whispering Will-O-Wisp. Every town has its mysteries, and in the quiet village of Larkspur Hollow, the biggest mystery was the Moonlight Marsh. It wasn't on any maps. Grown-ups claimed it didn't exist. But every full moon, if you stood just right and squinted past the edge of Brambleberry Woods, you could see a soft silver shimmer, like the marsh was breathing in moonlight. 10-year-old Tilly Marlowe believed in the marsh. She believed in secret places, talking animals, and stars that listened. Her grandmother used to tell her tales of the will-o'-wisps, tiny, glowing beings that whispered riddles and guided those with kind hearts. But now her grandmother was gone, and Tilly hadn't heard a whisper in months. Until one special night, the night of the full moon. It was the first full moon of summer. Tilly sat at her bedroom window, hugging her knees, staring into the night. The world felt quiet in the way it does when something magical is about to happen. Suddenly, something flickered, just past the trees. It wasn't a flashlight. It wasn't a star. It danced. It hovered. It glowed. A will-o'-wisp, Tilly breathed. She raced downstairs, grabbed her boots and flashlight, and slipped out the back door. Her heart thumped with excitement and a pinch of fear. But more than anything, she felt hope. Into the marsh. Tilly crept through the woods until her feet squished into soft, mossy ground. The air shimmered with silver mist. She had found it, the moonlight marsh. Glowing lilies floated on still water. Trees bent like they were listening. Frogs sang lullabies. And there, just ahead, hovered the light, the will-o'-wisp. It was no bigger than an apple, with a body made of light and wings like melting snowflakes. It darted forward and backward, as if inviting her to follow. "Are you real?" Tilly whispered. The will-o'-wisp didn't speak with words. Instead, it shimmered with warmth, and in her mind, she heard a voice like wind through grass. "The moon is round, the path is near. Follow quick, but bring no fear." Tilly smiled. A riddle, just like Grandma said. She followed. A marsh full of riddles. The will-o'-wisp led her through a maze of lily pads and stepping stones. Each time she paused, it whispered a new rhyme. Through cattails tall and lantern trees. Walk like shadows on a breeze. Tilly tiptoed through the marsh, arms out like wings. Then, where silver sings and frogs do croon, you'll find the face behind the moon. The face behind the moon? Tilly asked aloud. You mean the moon spirit? The will-o'-wisp danced in approval. Soon they reached a willow tree bigger than any she'd ever seen. Its branches sparkled as if dusted with stardust, and at its base, glowing mushrooms formed a circle. The will-o'-wisp floated to the center and waited. Tilly stepped into the circle. The world tilted. The dreaming glade. Suddenly, she wasn't in the marsh anymore. She stood in a glowing glade beneath a sky full of moons, dozens of them, each one a different shape and color. Blue moons, golden moons, even one with stripes. A soft voice echoed, old and gentle. You who seek the wisp of light have entered through the gate of night. But stars are we, from sky once torn, and now we fade, our whispers worn. Tilly turned. There, rising from a pool of silver mist, stood a being of light. It looked like a tall, glowing silhouette made of moonbeams and fog. Its face was kind but sorrowful. You're the moon spirit, Tilly said, hardly daring to blink. A fragment, it replied. We're scattered. Long ago, when the sky cracked with anger and stars fell, the will-o'-wisps were born, each one a piece of the moon's wisdom. Tilly glanced at the will-o'-wisp hovering near her shoulder. You're part of the moon? The wisp glowed sadly. But now they are fading. The world no longer listens to whispers. Few follow riddles. Fewer still believe. Tilly frowned. But I believe. I've always believed. The spirit knelt before her. Then you must help. The will-o'-wisp who found you has grown too dim to return to the sky. You are the last who can carry its light back home. The moon bridge. The spirit raised a hand. A path of light unfurled into the sky, a shimmering bridge made of stardust and song. But I can't fly, Tilly whispered. The will-o'-wisp floated into her hands, glowing faintly. You must carry it, said the spirit. Hold it close to your heart and believe. Tilly stepped onto the moon bridge. Her feet didn't fall through. She walked higher and higher, above the trees, above the clouds, until the earth looked like a marble below her. The sky around her thrummed with magic. Then, just ahead, a glowing door appeared. A doorway in the sky itself, shaped like a crescent moon. Inside, stars sang softly. Tilly reached the door and held the will-o'-wisp high. This is your home, she whispered. Go. The will-o'-wisp pulsed once in her hands. Then it rose, circling her in a spiral of sparkles. Before flying through the door, the sky burst with light. A new star appeared. Tilly gasped, and the world went still, back in the marsh. When she opened her eyes, she was lying beneath the great willow tree. The sky above was still full of moonlight, but now one star shone brighter than the rest. Her hands were empty, but her heart felt full. As she stood, something tickled her palm. A single feather of light. She held it close. The moon spirit's voice echoed faintly. When you believe, we shine again. 1 year later, the Moonlight Marsh was still not on any map. Adults still claimed it didn't exist. But every full moon, Tilly went back. Sometimes she just sat and listened to the frogs. Other times, she saw Flicker's new will-o'-wisps glowing like baby fireflies. And one night, she wasn't alone. A little boy, no older than 5, stood at the edge of the trees, staring in wonder at the marsh. Tilly smiled and held out her hand. Want to hear a riddle? The end.